This is election night in California.
And we continue to monitor and update the key national and local races, including the presidential race and the battle for Congress. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Golston Dart.
And I'm Edie Lambert. We also know you're watching a lot of races here in California, from the statewide races to your city and county elections. KCRA 3's Lisa Gonzalez and our Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala have both been with us tonight, providing context and the results as the numbers come in.
Yeah, so we are covering our local and state races across California with live reports from up and down the state and breaking it all down with our expert analysis. And our experts are here in the studio tonight. We're getting in more results now as the election picture comes better into focus now.
So let's bring you some big headlines in our state right now. California voters overwhelmingly approve Prop 36, which will increase sentences for some drug and theft crimes.
And the presidential race remains too close to call at this point. Here is the Electoral College map at this hour. According to AP, former President Donald Trump with 247 electoral votes, Vice President Kamala Harris at 214. And this is news tonight. Republicans will control the Senate in the next Congress. The GOP flipping 2 seats from the Democrats and will hold at least 51 seats. 8 races are still not called.
And the balance of power in the House is still undecided. 76 races yet to be called. Many of those races are here in California. So let's check in now with the numbers that we have so far. This is how our state has voted. And as expected, a commanding lead for Kamala Harris here in California. Of course, California called for Kamala Harris, and our electoral votes go into her category.
All right, and we can also show you this number here, the popular vote. This is overall throughout the country, and you can see right now with the numbers that are available that Donald Trump leads in the popular vote.
All right, now let's check in. We have KCRA 3's Lisa Gonzalez on the presidential race. Lisa?
Yes, and we continue to look at the numbers as they come in. You just mentioned the Electoral College, and look at this. It's gone up to 248 electoral votes for former President Donald Trump right now, 214 for Vice President Kamala Harris. And again, the goal for each of these candidates is to get to 270 electoral votes. And that's why the swing states have been so important. We continue to watch the 7 swing states. Of course, we know 2 of the swing states have been called by NBC News for former President Trump. That includes Georgia and North Carolina. And both of those states combined have 32 electoral votes with them. Now, Pennsylvania is a very important battleground state that we have been watching because it's got the most electoral votes up for grabs out of all the battleground states, with 19 votes up for grabs, with 94% of the precincts reporting 51% of the vote going to former President Trump, Vice President Harris with 48% of the votes. Let's take a look at the state of Arizona right now, and you can see Trump with 50.1% and Harris with 49.1%. It is really, really close right now. Only a matter of about less than 20,000 votes separating the 2 candidates right now, and that's with only about a little over half of the precincts reporting, 51% of the precincts reporting. By the way, in Arizona, there are 11 electoral votes up for grabs. So Michigan, also a battleground state, with 70% of the precincts reporting right now. We have Trump with 52% of the votes, and you can see Vice President Harris with 46% of the votes. But right here, only about 70% of the precincts reporting at this time. Let's go to the state of Nevada, where Vice President Harris was just last Friday, I believe, here campaigning. And with only 47% of the votes, Harris right now, that's 78% of the precincts reporting. Former President Trump has a commanding lead with 52% of the votes. In the state of Wisconsin, there are 10 electoral votes up for grabs right now. And we can see with 88% of the precincts reporting, getting pretty high there, former President Donald Trump has 51% of the votes. Vice President Kamala Harris, 47% of the votes right now. We'll continue to watch these very important swing states and send it back over to you, Edie and Golston.
Yeah, still some important races to wait to see how they shake out. And with that in mind, we know that Kamala Harris will not be making any comments tonight. She said that there are still votes to be counted. As for Donald Trump, the last word we got from the Associated Press is that he does plan on addressing his supporters from Florida at a gathering there, a party in his honors, so we will wait to see if that still happens. But we have not yet heard exactly when that might happen. But if it happens in the next hour, we'll be sure to go there.
Yeah, people still gathered at a convention center in Florida waiting to hear from him, and it is 2 o'clock in the morning in Florida right now. So again, Californians are electing a new U.S. Senator this year. No incumbent. This is for the seat that was held by the late Dianne Feinstein. Adam Schiff was declared the winner of this race early on, just after the polls closed at 8 o'clock. He was running against a newcomer to politics, baseball star Steve Garvey, who had played for the Dodgers and the Padres. So Andrea Flores has been covering the Adam Schiff campaign, and she has our report from Los Angeles.
We're here at the California Democratic headquarters. This is the official watch party in downtown Los Angeles. We are at the JW Marriott at LA Live. The program has ended for the night. Of course, the race for Senator-elect Adam Schiff was called very early, as soon as the polls closed tonight at 8 p.m. Now, we know that he came out here and addressed his supporters, the people who voted for him, even the people who did not vote for him, saying that he plans to work for all Californians, regardless of party affiliation.
As your senator, I am committed to standing up for every Californian. I am committed to taking on the big fights to protect our freedoms and to protect our democracy. California will continue to be at the forefront of progress.
He says that he hopes all Californians stand up and work together and stand up for each other. He also talked about some of the key issues that he plans to address as soon as he gets to work. He said the big message tonight is to get to work. He has talked about throughout his campaign the need for affordable housing, more housing units, additional affordable housing, and also how that could impact homelessness, getting people off the streets into shelters and into affordable housing. He also talked about protecting access to abortion rights, and he said he wanted to bring more jobs to the economy here in California, more resources to the economy here in California. He was joined by his wife, Eve, Adam and Eve. He jokes about that often. Also, here with his 2 kids, he thanked his family, again, his supporters. A lot of people here, though, even though the program has ended, they're still watching for the big race of the night. Of course, the presidential election. We know hundreds of Harris volunteers and supporters came from other states, got off a bus, and came to tonight's event. About 1,500 people showed up here in support of California's Democrats and the Democratic Party. We are continuing to watch all of the latest here from the California Democratic headquarters. We will continue to bring you those updates. For now, we'll send it back to you. Reporting in downtown Los Angeles, I'm Andrea Flores.
All right, and let's go to Michelle Bandur, who has this report from the Garvey campaign in Palm Desert.
Steve Garvey says he hopes he inspired people with what he says was running a positive campaign, a campaign that he says where he left everything out there, like he does in baseball, leaving everything out on the field. He likened his campaign to being in baseball, this former professional baseball player, saying that he loved waking up every day and playing for the people and having a team around him, a team of fans and a team of supporters. Now, Garvey was gracious in his concession speech, congratulating his Democratic opponent, Congressman Adam Schiff, now Senator-elect Schiff. Now, that statement brought boos from the crowd, but he calmed folks down. He thanked his family, his children, his supporters. He also went on to thank law enforcement, military, and veterans. He said that during his campaign, he brought up important issues like homelessness, border control, and the economy, as well as inflation.
What I believe in is always being fair and just and kind and merciful, and always standing up for civility. And I've preached this throughout this run. And by recognizing that if we do lose tonight, we have learned so much from this race. And the thing I learned is all of you took your commitment to this state and to this country higher. And I am so proud of you for doing that.
This was Steve Garvey's first bid for a public office. However, he didn't make it. He didn't win. He said he hates losing and wishes he would have been that 53rd senator in the new U.S. Senate House. However, he said that he still wants to continue serving the people. When we asked him earlier, what happens, win or lose? He said that was important to him, to continue serving the people and bringing attention to those issues that he thinks are so important. Of course, as we have reported earlier, he will be on another ballot, the one for the National Hall of Fame for professional baseball, and we'll see what happens with that come January. Reporting from Rancho Mirage, Michelle Van Tour, KCRA 3 News. Back to you in Sacramento.
All right, Michelle, thank you. We go from there to a live look in West Palm Beach, Florida. This is a big convention center where former President Trump and Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance are expected to take the stage pretty soon now. Keep in mind, it's about coming up on 2:15 in the morning there, and you can still see a huge crowd gathered. And they just got some good news there. NBC News projecting Pennsylvania for the former president. Of course, that is a key swing state. The #1 must-win state for both candidates with 19 electoral votes. So that is a big announcement for the Trump campaign. And with that in mind, let's check in with our Democratic and Republican analysts.
Yeah, thanks for that, Edie. And as we're learning this in real time and going with the numbers that NBC is looking at right now, this obviously makes a path for the vice president increasingly difficult. So just as you hear what you're hearing, and I remember when we ran into each other at the Democratic convention, and there was a great vibe going on during those 4 days there, and the campaign really had to really ramp up, going from 0 to 100 miles an hour in like this, no time. So it's interesting to see how the campaign played out, and things are looking more and more difficult to get across the finish line right now.
Yeah, so that path has definitely narrowed. It is improbable, but not impossible. And as we know, there are still a lot of votes to be counted, and so many of us are holding our breath and crossing our fingers for a Hail Mary and a comeback.
And also, just, I mean, you being involved in Bay Area politics, and the vice president also, really cutting her political teeth in Bay Area politics. Just, I mean, your thoughts about her?
Yeah, well, she is one of a kind, and to do what she did in a little more than 100 days is remarkable. And to build a coalition that was so diverse, that was so inclusive, that was so positive, that really tried to bring a different vibe to politics is something that so many of us really appreciated. For so many of us, character is just as important as policy. And so to have someone like former President Trump, who has been so divisive and so destructive in both his behavior and rhetoric, whether it be towards women or immigrants or women, is even more than shocking. It's sad. And so much hope for our first woman president, and we're still going to hold that hope until every vote is counted. Okay,
Dwight, I just want to ask you, as you're getting this information too, with Pennsylvania now in Trump's corner, that puts him just under 270, and there's some other states right now, Michigan, Wisconsin, and I believe Arizona, that are leaning toward Trump with the voting, with the counting still going on. A lot of people said that they were just looking at these basic kitchen table issues that kept coming up for regular working folk, which the Republicans seem to they're starting to gravitate towards representing more. And it was about the economy and how much things now cost people.
Policy matters. I think if the results hold as they are and President Trump is returned to the White House, it shows a remarkable turnaround off in American history. Again, as I mentioned earlier, no president since, well, at least since Grover Cleveland has made this return like this. A president who was president one term, out for another one, come back and gets in.
Two non-consecutive
terms.
Right.
And so it looks like it's looking more and more likely that Donald Trump will return to the White House. This is an individual who's had a political career that will be going down in the history books. Policy matters. Inflation, the border, inflation, again, when you compare what it was 4 years ago to today, and the overarching question was asked, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And the majority of it is seemingly to say, no, we're not. Let's go back to President Trump. It was better under his term than it is now.
All right. Well, Kimberly, I appreciate your input. Certainly yours too, Dwight. And we'll continue to watch this race as it is still playing out. The numbers are still coming in, guys, and I'll send it back to you.
All right, and we are still watching many of the congressional races across our state, including this one, District 9, with the incumbent Josh Harder running against Republican Stockton Mayor Kevin Lincoln. I'm not sure that these numbers have changed a whole lot as we've been watching throughout the night, but Josh Harder holding on to a lead in that race. Now to District 3, which has also been a hard-fought campaign here by both candidates. Kevin Kiley, the incumbent since 2022, Jessica Morse taking him on the Democratic side, and Kevin Kiley holding on to his lead in that race. So let's check in with KCRA 3's Lizzie Mitri live at Kevin Kiley's watch party in Roseville.
Yeah, and that is here at the Opera House Saloon, like you said, in Roseville. And take a look, there's still plenty of people having a good time here. Everyone is in a great mood, as you can see. Very excited about the results they're seeing tonight. Earlier, we did have a chance to speak with the congressman about what his priorities would be in his second term. Here's what he had to say.
I think we've got a lot to build on, but we do need to go further. We need to get spending more under control. We need to get our economy back on track. We need to get prices down. We need to secure our border in a real and meaningful and lasting way. But I really think that we, in the time ahead of us, we have an opportunity to really catalyze economic growth of a kind that we've never seen before in this country.
We also talked to him about what a challenge it can be to campaign in a district like this that is so geographically diverse, obviously containing Placer County, but also Lake Tahoe, Death Valley, just a lot of different areas stretching for a large part of our state here. But it was still considered by non-partisan groups to be likely Republican. So as you can see, these results tonight, not totally surprising, but definitely welcome news for the congressman's supporters here. Live in Roseville, Lizzie Mitri, KCRA 3 News.
Lizzie, thank you. And we heard from Congressman Kiley's Democratic challenger, Jessica Morse, earlier tonight, also in Roseville.
We know that we have the responsibility and the right to stand up and demand that women move forward. Right? When we live in an age where we hear echoes from J.D. Vance and Kevin Kiley and Donald Trump that they're saying, oh no, women, we want to put you back into a box where your only option is to work in the home. We stepped up and said, hey, no, we want to put a woman in the house.
The 13th Congressional District is one that Democrats are hoping to flip. We're looking at another very close election, now down to just over 1,000 ballots separating these two candidates. John Duarte is the incumbent, Adam Gray, the Democratic challenger. And in the last race 2 years ago, I mean, they were separated by just over 500 ballots when everything was said and done. So, yeah, this one is just a nail biter tonight. And we spoke to the incumbent, John Duarte. He says he's still hopeful and confident in his campaign effort.
Yeah, Carolina Estrada has a look at his watch party that was happening in Turlock.
And we spoke to incumbent Republican John Duarte. He says he is hopeful and confident in his campaign efforts. We're here at his watch party in Turlock, where he and his supporters are patiently waiting for those results. Duarte is a Modesto native, farmer, and businessman. This race is a rematch for Duarte and Democratic challenger Adam Gray. Back in 2022, California's 13th Congressional District race was one of the closest in the nation. We spoke to Duarte about what he did differently during his 2024 campaign. Take a listen.
I think the real critical thing is last time we were talking about gas and groceries, drill American oil, get water on the farms, get the cost of living under control, restore the American dream. And now nationwide, everyone's talking about that. So I think we were just ahead of the game, I think, in terms of understanding where working families were and what they wanted to hear from their electeds that would really matter to them.
And Duarte recognizes this is a close race. He says he's still going to be waiting for those results that are going to be coming in the next couple of hours. In Turlock, Carolina Estrada, KCRA 3 News.
And Ryan Curry's been covering the Adam Gray campaign in Atwater.
The former assembly member and his campaign staff are paying close attention to the results as they come in throughout the evening. At this party, he was seen shaking hands with campaign supporters and campaign staff members as they wait the results to come in. Last time these two went together, the race was not decided on election night and took weeks after, and it was a fairly close race, only decided by just a few hundred votes. I asked the former assembly member what he had to do differently this time around, and he said double down on efforts to try to win this election and can sway voters to his favor. That means knocking on doors more, making more phone calls, on the ground, speaking with people in his district to try to get them to vote for him. I asked him if he wins, what would he do once he gets to Congress? He says cut down on the division between the two parties.
You know, people are tired of the nonsense in Washington, and that's really what I got a sense of as I went door to door and talked to people. They just want people in Congress that are serious about solving problems and working hard every day like they do.
Adam Gray and his staff are going to continue paying close attention to those numbers as they slowly come in, but their spirits are high as they hold this party on election night. In Atwater, Ryan Curry, KCRA 3 News.